The moment I held my baby for the first time was surreal, a mixture of joy and disbelief that left me breathless. I remember the sterile smell of the hospital room, mingling with the faint scent of lavender from the air freshener my wife had insisted on bringing. The beeping of machines faded into the background as I cradled this tiny being in my arms, a perfect little bundle swaddled in soft, white fabric. My heart raced as I gazed into the baby's face, those delicate features that seemed so innocent and pure. "Look at her," I whispered to my wife, Sarah, who lay exhausted but radiant on the hospital bed. Her smile was wide, filled with pride, and it mirrored my own. "She's beautiful." In that moment, everything felt right in the world. I was a father, and nothing could take that away from me. The weight of responsibility was heavy, but it was a burden I was more than willing to bear. As I looked closer, I noticed the way her tiny mouth formed a perfect little O as she slept, the gentle rise and fall of her chest, and the soft tufts of hair that peeked out from under the blanket. I couldn't help but run my fingers over her head, marveling at how fragile and yet how strong she felt in my arms. I was filled with an overwhelming sense of pride, a feeling of completeness that I had never experienced before. "Can you believe it?" I said, turning to Sarah, who was still catching her breath. "We made her." The words felt monumental, echoing in the quiet room. I had always dreamed of this moment, and now that it was here, it felt like a dream come true. The days that followed were a whirlwind of sleepless nights and joyous laughter. Friends and family visited, each one marveling at our little girl, whom we named Lily. I watched as Sarah took to motherhood with grace, her nurturing instincts shining through. We shared late-night feedings, long walks in the park with the stroller, and countless moments of laughter that made the exhaustion worthwhile. But beneath the surface of this newfound happiness, I felt a flicker of unease. It was subtle at first, just a whisper in the back of my mind, but it nagged at me. I couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. I had never seen a baby that looked quite like Lily, but I brushed it aside, convincing myself that all Bobbies were unique. After all, she had Sarah's bright blue eyes and delicate nose, and surely those traits were enough to convince me of her lineage. As the weeks turned into months, the unease grew. Friends and family would comment on how much Lily looked like me, and I would smile, but deep down, I felt a twinge of doubt. The whispers in my mind turned into shouts, and I knew I had to put an end to my uncertainty. That's when I suggested the DNA test. "Just to be sure," I said, trying to sound casual. "It's a new thing, right? Just a precaution." Sarah looked at me, her expression unreadable, but she nodded, and I felt a sense of relief wash over me. Little did I know, that decision would lead me down a path I never wanted to travel, a journey that would unravel everything I thought I knew about love, trust, and the very foundation of my family. The anticipation of the results loomed over me like a dark cloud, but I pushed those thoughts away, focusing instead on the joy of being a father. I reveled in the small moments, Lily's first smile, her first word, her first steps. Those memories were etched in my mind, and I held on to them tightly, hoping they would anchor me through whatever storm was brewing on the horizon. But that storm was coming, and I was blissfully unaware of just how devastating it would be. The day the DNA test results arrived felt like any other. I was at work, buried under a mountain of reports and deadlines, when my phone buzzed with an alert. It was a notification from the lab, the subject line reading, "DNA test results ready." My heart raced. I had been waiting for this moment, but now that it was here, I felt a wave of anxiety wash over me. I clicked on the link, my mind swirling with thoughts. What if everything was fine? What if my worries were unfounded? I thought about Lily's smile, the way she looked at me with those innocent blue eyes. Surely I was being paranoid. But as I opened the results, a chill crept down my spine. The words seemed to blur together, the implications of the report crashing down on me like a tidal wave. I read the words over and over again, trying to process what they meant. 0% probability of paternity. Those words echoed in my mind, ringing louder than any alarm bell. I felt the air leave my lungs, my heart pounding so hard I could hear it in my ears. I stumbled out of my office, my legs feeling like jelly. I could barely think straight as I made my way to the parking lot. The world around me faded, the sounds of bustling colleagues and ringing phones drowned out by the roaring in my head. I was in shock, disbelief wrapping around me like a heavy cloak. How could this be? My mind raced through 1,000 scenarios, each one more painful than the last. I thought of Sarah, of our life together, of the love we had built over the years. My hands trembled as I gripped the steering wheel, my knuckles turning white. The drive home was a blur. I don't remember the traffic lights or the turns I took. All I could think about was the betrayal that had just been thrust upon me. I could feel the anger bubbling beneath the surface, but it was overshadowed by an unbearable sadness. How could she do this to me, to us? When I finally pulled into the driveway, I took a moment to collect myself. I sat in the car, staring at the front door where the life I thought I had was waiting for me. I felt sick to my stomach, the weight of the news pressing down on me like an anchor. I took a deep breath, steeling myself for what I had to do. As I walked through the door, the familiar sounds of our home greeted me. Lily's soft coos from the nursery, the faint hum of the television in the living room. I could see Sarah in the kitchen, her back turned to me as she prepared dinner. She looked so serene, so blissfully unaware of the storm that was about to break. "Hey, how was your day?" she called out, her voice light and cheerful. "Can we talk?" I replied, my voice flat. The change in my tone immediately caught her attention. She turned to face me, her expression shifting from joy to concern. "What's wrong?" I could feel the anger rising within me, threatening to spill out, but I held it back. "I got the results from the DNA test," I said, my voice steady despite the chaos inside. Her face paled, and for a moment I saw a flicker of something, fear, guilt, I couldn't tell. "Oh," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. 0% probability of paternity," I stated, the words tasting bitter as they left my mouth. She opened her mouth to speak, but no words came out. I watched as her eyes widened, the reality of the situation dawning on her. I felt a rush of adrenaline, a mixture of anger and betrayal coursing through me. "Sarah, how could you?" I demanded, my voice rising. "How could you betray me like this? I thought we were a family." Tears pooled in her eyes, and she stepped back as if my words physically struck her. I can explain," she stammered. "Explain? What is there to explain?" I shot back, my emotions boiling over. "You had an affair, didn't you, with him?" The silence that followed was deafening. I could see her struggling to find the right words, but all I felt was the crushing weight of betrayal. I had trusted her with my heart, with my life, and she had shattered that trust in the most profound way. "Please, just let me talk," she pleaded, her voice breaking. I shook my head, my chest tight with anger and hurt. "You've already said enough. I can't believe this is happening. I can't believe you would do this to me." "Lily is still our daughter," she said, desperation creeping into her voice. "I love her and I love you. This doesn't change anything." But it did change everything. I felt my world crumbling around me, the foundation of my life cracking under the weight of her betrayal. I wanted to scream, to lash out, but instead I felt numb. I turned away, unable to look at her, unable to face the reality of the situation. I needed space, needed to process this unbearable truth. I walked out of the room, leaving her standing there, tears streaming down her face. As I stepped outside, the cool evening air hit my face, but it did nothing to calm the storm raging inside me. I was lost in a whirlwind of emotions, hurt, anger, confusion. I couldn't believe the woman I loved had betrayed me, and I couldn't shake the feeling that my life would never be the same again. I paced back and forth in the backyard, the cool grass beneath my feet grounding me, but the chaos in my mind refused to settle. I could still hear Sarah's voice in my head, pleading and desperate, but all I felt was a whirlwind of emotions threatening to tear me apart. How could she have done this? How could she have put me through this agony? As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows across the yard, I felt a mixture of anger and sadness welling up inside me. The life we had built together, the dreams we shared, all felt like a cruel joke. I wanted answers, and I wanted them now. Taking a deep breath, I stepped back inside the house, my resolve hardening. I found Sarah sitting on the couch, her face buried in her hands, her shoulders trembling with silent sobs. The sight of her, once so vibrant and full of life, now brought me no comfort. Instead, it ignited the fire of betrayal within me. Sarah, I said, my voice cold and steady. We need to talk now. She looked up, her eyes red and puffy, and I could see the fear in her expression. I know you're hurt, but please just let me explain, she said, her voice trembling. Explain? What could you possibly say that would make this okay? I shot back, my heart racing with anger. You cheated on me with your ex. You brought another man's child into our lives, and you expect me to just sit here and listen to your excuses. I didn't mean for it to happen, she cried, her voice rising in desperation. It was a mistake, a moment of weakness. I love you and I love Lily. You have to believe me. Believe you? I echoed, incredulity lacing my words. How can I believe anything you say? You've shattered my trust in the most profound way. Everything we built together feels like a lie. I made a terrible mistake, she said, her voice breaking. I thought I was over him, but when I saw him again, all those feelings came rushing back. It was stupid and I regret it every single day, but I never meant to hurt you, I swear. I felt the anger bubbling up inside me, but beneath it lay a deep sadness. I had loved this woman, trusted her more than anyone else in my life, and now that trust lay in ruins. Did you ever think about what this would do to me, to our family? You had an affair, Sarah. You let him touch you, kiss you, and now you expect me to just forgive you. I didn't think it would go that far, she shouted back, her voice rising in a mix of anger and regret. It was just a few times. I was confused. I interrupted, my voice rising as well. You were confused when you made vows to me. You were confused when you brought a child into this world that isn't even mine. The weight of my words hung in the air, and I saw the realization wash over her face. I know it doesn't make sense, but I promise you I love you. I love Lily like she's my own. She pleaded, her voice softening. You're the one I want to be with. You're the one I want to raise our daughter with. The irony of her words hit me hard. She was asking me to accept a child that wasn't mine, a child that she had brought into our lives under the shadow of betrayal. How can you expect me to raise a child that's not mine? I asked, my voice quieter now but filled with pain. How can I look at her and not see the truth staring back at me? Because she's still our daughter. Sarah insisted, her eyes pleading with me to understand. You've been there for her since the day she was born. You love her and she loves you. Please don't throw all of that away because of one mistake. I felt my heart breaking, torn between the love I had for Lily and the betrayal that had shattered my marriage. I turned away, running a hand through my hair as I tried to process everything. I need time, I said finally, my voice steady but pained. Time to think. Time to figure out what this means for me, for us. Please don't go, she begged, standing up and reaching for my arm. But I pulled away, the distance between us feeling like an insurmountable chasm. I need to be alone, I said, my voice firm. I couldn't bear to look at her, to see the pain I had caused her with my words. I walked out of the room, feeling the weight of her gaze on my back, and stepped into the cool night air outside. I needed to clear my head, to think without the noise of our confrontation echoing in my mind. I walked down to the edge of the yard, staring up at the stars twinkling in the vastness of the night sky. Each one felt like a reminder of the dreams I had lost, the life that had been ripped away from me. As I stood there, I felt an overwhelming sense of grief wash over me. I had loved Sarah with everything I had, and now that love felt tainted, overshadowed by her betrayal. I thought of Lily and the joy she had brought into my life, but now I felt a deep sense of conflict. Could I really raise her knowing she wasn't mine? Could I look at her and not see the reminder of Sarah's infidelity? I felt lost, adrift in a sea of emotions, unsure of where to go from here. The night stretched on, and I knew I had a long road ahead of me. I had to confront the reality of my situation, to figure out what it meant for my future, my family, and my heart. I spent the night in a haze, tossing and turning on the couch, unable to shake the thoughts racing through my mind. Every time I closed my eyes, images of Lily's innocent face danced before me, juxtaposed with the reality that she was not my biological child. I could still hear Sarah's voice, pleading with me to understand, to forgive. But how could I? The betrayal felt like a knife twisting in my gut, and I couldn't escape its grip. Morning came, but the sunlight felt harsh against my skin. I dragged myself out of bed, feeling like a ghost in my own home. The familiar sounds of Sarah moving about the kitchen greeted me, but they did little to ease the turmoil inside me. I wanted to talk to her to sort through the mess we had created, but I was terrified of what that conversation would entail. As I made my way to the kitchen, I could see her standing by the stove, her back turned to me. She looked so normal, so domestic, and yet everything felt shattered. I hesitated, my heart heavy with the weight of our recent confrontation. I wanted to scream, to demand answers, but instead I opted for silence. "Good morning," she said softly, glancing over her shoulder. Her voice was tentative, as if she were afraid of my reaction. "Morning," I replied, my tone flat. I busied myself with making coffee, the familiar ritual doing little to calm my racing thoughts. I could feel her eyes on me, searching for a glimpse of the man she once knew, but all I felt was the shadow of betrayal looming over our lives. As I poured myself a cup, the memories flooded back. The moments of laughter, the late-night conversations, the dreams we had shared about our future. I thought about how we had talked about raising a family, how we had chosen each other, and how we had committed ourselves to this life. But now those memories felt tainted, like a beautiful painting marred by a single dark stroke. "Can we talk?" Sarah finally asked, breaking the silence that had stretched between us like a chasm. I turned to face her, the hurt in her eyes mirrored in my own. "What is there to talk about?" I asked, my voice tinged with bitterness. "You cheated on me. You brought another man's child into my life." "I know," she said, her voice trembling, "and I'm so sorry. I never wanted to hurt you. I made a mistake, a terrible mistake, and I regret it every day. But I love you and I love Lily. Please, let's work through this together." "Work through this?" I echoed, incredulous. "How do you expect me to do that? You've shattered my trust. Every time I look at her, I'll be reminded of your betrayal." "Please just listen," she pleaded, stepping closer. "I know I messed up, but Lily is still our daughter. You've been there for her since the beginning. She loves you and you love her. Don't let this destroy everything we've built." Her words struck a chord deep within me, but I couldn't shake the anger and hurt that clouded my judgment. "You don't understand," I said, my voice cracking. "I thought I knew you. I thought we were a team, and now I feel like I don't know you at all." "I'm still the same person," she insisted, tears glistening in her eyes. "I made a mistake, but it doesn't change how I feel about you or Lily. Please, let's try to move forward. I want to make this work." I felt torn, caught between the love I had for Sarah and the betrayal that had shattered my world. "How can I trust you again?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. "How can I look at you and not see the woman who cheated on me?" "I'll do whatever it takes to earn back your trust," she promised, her voice filled with conviction. "I'll go to counseling. I'll be transparent. I'll do everything in my power to prove to you that I'm committed to our family." The sincerity in her voice tugged at my heart, but the pain was still fresh. "And what about Lily?" I asked, my voice trembling. "What does this mean for her?" "She's innocent in all of this," Sarah said, her voice breaking. "You're the only father she's ever known. I know it's complicated, but she needs you. I need you." I felt the weight of her words pressing down on me, and I closed my eyes, trying to block out the chaos. I thought of Lily's laughter, the way she looked at me with adoration, and the bond we had formed. But I also thought of the truth, the betrayal that had shattered the foundation of our lives. "I don't know if I can do this," I admitted, my voice barely above a whisper. "I don't know if I can forgive you. Just give me a chance," she begged, her eyes pleading with me to see beyond the betrayal. "I'll prove to you that I can be the wife you deserve. We can rebuild our family. Please don't give up on us." I felt the tears pooling in my eyes, the emotions threatening to spill over. I wanted to believe her, to hold on to the hope that we could salvage our marriage, but the road ahead felt daunting. "I need time," I said finally, my voice shaking. "I can't make any promises right now." "Take all the time you need," she said softly, her voice filled with understanding. "I'll be here waiting for you." As I turned away, I felt the weight of our conversation hanging in the air like a cloud. I knew I had a long journey ahead of me, one filled with heartache and uncertainty. But I also knew that I had to confront the reality of our situation and decide what was best for me, for Sarah, and for Lily. The love I had for my daughter was undeniable, but the betrayal I felt from Sarah was equally powerful. I had to navigate this complex web of emotions, to find a way forward that felt right. As I stepped outside, the cool breeze brushed against my skin, and I took a deep breath, preparing myself for the difficult path ahead. The days turned into weeks, and each morning felt like a battle against the shadows of betrayal that loomed over our home. I tried to maintain a semblance of normalcy for Lily's sake, but inside, I was a storm of conflicting emotions. I went through the motions of fatherhood, feeding her, playing with her, and reading her bedtime stories. But every moment was tinged with the knowledge that she wasn't biologically mine. I found myself seeking refuge in the small things. The rhythm of our daily routines became my lifeline, a way to escape the turmoil that threatened to engulf me. I would wake up early to prepare breakfast, watching as Lily's sleepy eyes lit up at the sight of her favorite pancakes. I would smile, reminding myself that she was still my daughter in every meaningful way. But the truth was an ever-present specter, haunting me as I watched her grow. Sarah and I barely spoke in those early days. The silence between us was deafening, filled with unspoken words and unresolved pain. She was trying to give me space, but I could see the worry etched on her face. I wanted to reach out to comfort her, but every time I looked at her, the memories of her infidelity flooded back. The trust we once shared felt irreparably broken. I found solace in talking to my best friend, Jake. He had always been my confidant, the one person I could turn to when life got tough. One evening, after a particularly rough day, I invited him over for a few drinks. As we sat on the patio, the sun setting in a fiery orange hue, I felt the tension in my chest loosen just a little. "Man, you look like hell," Jake said, pouring me another drink. "What's going on with you?" I took a deep breath, looking out at the horizon. "It's Sarah. She cheated on me. And now I found out Lily isn't mine." Jake's expression shifted from casual concern to shock. "Dude, I'm so sorry, that's brutal." I nodded, the weight of my emotions crashing down on me. "I don't even know how to process it. I love Lily, but every time I look at her, I'm reminded of Sarah's betrayal. I feel like I'm losing my mind." "Have you talked to her about it?" Jake asked, leaning forward. "Yeah, but it's like we're just stuck in this limbo. She wants to work things out, but I don't know if I can ever trust her again." I admitted, my voice thick with emotion. "I don't know how to move forward." "Maybe you need to take some time for yourself," Jake suggested. "Focus on what you need, not just what Sarah wants. You can't rush healing." His words resonated with me. I realized I had been so focused on Sarah's needs and feelings that I had neglected my own. I needed to process my emotions, to understand what I truly wanted moving forward. In the following days, I started to carve out space for myself. I took long walks in the park, allowing the fresh air to clear my mind. I spent time with friends, reconnecting with the parts of myself that had been overshadowed by the chaos of my marriage. I even started journaling, pouring my thoughts onto the pages, trying to make sense of the whirlwind of feelings inside me. Despite my efforts to focus on self-care, I still found myself struggling with the reality of our situation. I would watch Sarah as she played with Lily, a look of pure joy on her face, and the sight would fill me with a mix of love and resentment. I wanted to be happy for them, to celebrate the bond they shared, but the betrayal was a constant reminder of my own heartache. One afternoon, as I sat on the porch with a cup of coffee, I saw Sarah in the yard, playing with Lily. They were laughing, the sound like music to my ears, but it also cut deep. I felt an overwhelming urge to join them, to be part of that moment, but I hesitated. How could I be present when my heart was so fractured? "Come on, Dad." Lily called out, her arms outstretched, inviting me to join them. I took a deep breath, forcing a smile as I stood up. "Okay, okay," I replied, walking over to them. As I entered the yard, I felt a flicker of hope. I knelt down beside Lily, scooping her into my arms and lifting her high above my head. Her laughter filled the air, and for a moment the pain faded into the background. In that instant, I remembered why I had fallen in love with this little girl, her spirit, her joy, and her innocence. But the moment was fleeting. As I set her down, I caught Sarah's eye, and the weight of our situation crashed back down on me. I could see the hope in her gaze, the longing for us to be a family again, but I felt trapped, unable to fully embrace that hope. After a few more moments of play, I excused myself, retreating back to the solitude of the porch. I needed space to think, to process the conflicting emotions swirling within me. I realized that while I loved Lily with all my heart, I still had to confront the betrayal that had shattered my marriage. I began to explore the idea of counseling, both individually and as a couple. I knew it wouldn't be easy, but I needed guidance to navigate the complex emotions that had taken root in my heart. I wanted to heal, not just for myself, but for Lily. She deserved a father who could love her fully, without the shadows of betrayal hanging over us. As I picked up my phone to search for a therapist, I felt a sense of determination. I was ready to confront the pain, to face the reality of my situation. I didn't know what the future held, but I knew I had to take the first step toward healing for myself and for the little girl who had stolen my heart. The weeks passed, and with each counseling session, I began to peel back the layers of hurt and confusion that had settled deep within me. The therapist helped me articulate my feelings, guiding me through the tumultuous emotions that had felt so overwhelming. I learned to confront my pain instead of burying it. I realized that while Sarah's betrayal had shattered my trust, I still had the power to shape my own future. Our couple's sessions, Sarah was raw and vulnerable, revealing her own fears and regrets. She spoke of her love for Lily and me, how the affair had been a moment of weakness that she had never intended to let spiral out of control. I could see how deeply she was hurting, and it stirred a mix of empathy and lingering anger within me. Trust is built over time, our therapist reminded us. It's not something that can be repaired overnight. You both need to be patient with yourselves and each other. Those words resonated deeply. I realized that rebuilding our relationship would take time, but it was a journey I was willing to embark on. I didn't want to lose Sarah, the woman I had loved for so long, but I knew that I had to prioritize my own healing first. As we continued to attend counseling, I found myself slowly opening up to the idea of reconciliation. I began to see glimpses of the woman I had fallen in love with, the partner who had once been my confidant and best friend. We laughed together again, shared stories, and reminisced about our early days. But the shadow of the affair still loomed, and I knew we had to address it head-on. One evening, as we sat on the couch after a long day, I turned to Sarah. "I want to try," I said, my voice steady but filled with vulnerability. "I want to work on us, but I need to know that you're committed to doing the same. This isn't just about saying the right things, it's about actions." "I'm committed," she replied, her eyes filled with sincerity. "I'll do whatever it takes to earn back your trust. I want to show you that I can be the wife you deserve." I nodded, feeling a flicker of hope ignite within me. "I want to believe you, but it's going to take time. I need to see that you're willing to put in the effort." "I will," she promised, taking my hand. "I'll be here every step of the way." As the days turned into months, the healing process was neither linear nor easy. There were moments of doubt, times when the pain resurfaced unexpectedly, but with each passing day I felt stronger. I was learning to separate my love for Lily from the betrayal that had rocked my world. I was discovering that I could be a father to her, even if she wasn't biologically mine. I watched as she grew, her laughter ringing through the house, and I found joy in the small moments. I cherished our bedtime stories, our trips to the park, and the way she would curl up next to me on the couch. Each day, I reminded myself that love wasn't defined by blood. It was about the bond we forged together. Sarah and I continued to attend counseling, and we began to rebuild our relationship brick by brick. We learned to communicate better, to express our feelings honestly, and to confront our fears together. There were still hard days, but there were also moments of joy that reminded me why I had fallen in love with her in the first place. One evening, as we sat together after putting Lily to bed, I turned to Sarah. "I've been thinking," I said, hesitating slightly. "I want to officially adopt Lily." Her eyes widened, and I could see the surprise washing over her face. "Are you sure?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "I am," I replied, my heart pounding. "I know she's not biologically mine, but I love her. I want to be her dad, and I want her to know that she's my daughter no matter what." Tears filled her eyes, and she reached for my hand. "That means everything to me. Thank you for being willing to take that step." As we embraced, I felt a sense of peace wash over me. I knew the road ahead would still have its challenges, but I also knew we were on the right path. We were healing, growing, and learning to love each other again. In the months that followed, we began the process of adoption, and it felt like a new chapter in our lives. I watched as Sarah and I navigated the paperwork and the legalities, and I felt a sense of hope blossoming within me. This was our chance to redefine our family, to create a bond that transcended the pain of the past. On the day of the adoption hearing, I sat in the courtroom, my heart racing with anticipation. As the judge asked me to affirm my commitment to Lily, I felt tears prick at the corners of my eyes. I was ready to embrace this new identity, to fully step into the role of her father. When the judge declared the adoption final, I felt a rush of relief and joy. I turned to Lily, who was sitting between us, her bright eyes shining with excitement. "You're officially mine now," I said, kneeling down to her level, "and I will always love you no matter what." She beamed at me, and in that moment I knew that love was more powerful than betrayal. I had learned that trust could be rebuilt, and that forgiveness was a journey worth taking. As we left the courthouse hand in hand, I looked at Sarah and saw the love in her eyes. We had faced the storm together and emerged stronger. We were still learning, still growing, but we were committed to each other and to our family. And as I held Lily's hand, I knew that I would fight for her and for our family every single day. Love had triumphed over betrayal, and I was ready to embrace the future with open arms. In the end, I learned that life is filled with unexpected twists and turns, but it's how we navigate those challenges that defines us. I had faced my darkest moments, but I had also discovered the strength to rise again. And as we walked into the sunset, I felt a sense of hope for the future, a future filled with love, trust, and the promise of new beginnings. This was my family, and I was proud to be their father.